He stood in front of the mirror, staring at a man he barely recognized. The expensive suit was gone. The polished shoes, the perfect hair, the confident smile, all replaced by worn-out jeans, a faded jacket, and a cap pulled low over his eyes. For the first time in years, no one would know who he really was. No one would treat him like a powerful CEO. And that was exactly the point. What he was about to discover would shake him to his core and change not just his company, but his life forever. Before we begin, if stories like this move you, don't forget to subscribe, like, and share your thoughts in the comments. Welcome to Kindness Story Hub, where real stories remind us of the power of being human. Daniel Harper was the CEO of a fast-growing logistics company based in the United States. His company handled deliveries across multiple states, and on paper, everything looked perfect. Profits were rising. Investors were happy. Reports showed efficiency and growth, but something felt off. Employee turnover had quietly increased. Customer complaints, though small, were becoming more frequent. And deep down, Daniel couldn't shake the feeling that numbers weren't telling him the full story. So he made a bold decision. He would go undercover for 1 week. Daniel would work as a regular employee in one of his busiest warehouses, unrecognized, unnoticed, and treated like everyone else. On a chilly Monday morning, Daniel walked into the warehouse as Danny, a new temporary hire. The noise hit him first, the hum of machines, the clatter of boxes, the sharp voices of supervisors rushing orders. IT was a world far removed from his quiet, glass-walled office. His first task was simple: sort packages on a conveyor belt. Within minutes, his back ached. His hands struggled to keep up with the speed. Workers around him moved fast, barely speaking, their faces tired and focused. Then came the first shock. A supervisor named Rick stormed over, yelling at a young worker who had dropped a package. "Do you even know what you're doing?" Rick snapped. "We don't have time for mistakes." The young worker, barely out of his teens, lowered his head and whispered, "Sorry." Daniel froze. This wasn't the culture he thought he had built. Later that day, during a short break, Daniel sat alone, trying to process what he had seen. That's when a woman named Maria approached him. "First day?" she asked with a gentle smile. Daniel nodded. "Don't worry," she said. "It gets easier, sort of." There was something warm about her presence. She looked tired, like everyone else, but her kindness stood out. Over the next few days, Maria became Daniel's quiet guide. She showed him shortcuts to make the work easier. She shared her lunch when he forgot to bring one. She even defended him when Rick criticized his slow pace. "Everyone starts somewhere," Maria said firmly. "Give him a chance." Daniel was stunned. Here was someone with no power, no title, no recognition, and yet she was the one holding the team together. As the week went on, Daniel noticed more workers skipping breaks because they were afraid of falling behind, employees quietly helping each other when supervisors weren't looking. A single mother working double shifts, barely seeing her kids. A man who had been there for years but had never received a raise, and through it all, small acts of kindness flickered like tiny lights in the darkness. Someone offering a bottle of water. A quick "you got this" during a stressful moment. A shared laugh after a long shift. These moments weren't in any report. They weren't measured in profits. But they were the heartbeat of the entire operation. By Thursday, Daniel felt a growing weight in his chest. He had built a successful company, but had he failed his people? That evening, something happened that would change everything. The warehouse was short-staffed, and the workload was overwhelming. Orders were piling up, and Rick was more aggressive than ever. At one point, Daniel struggled to lift a heavy box and nearly dropped it. Before Rick could yell, Maria rushed over and helped him steady it. "Careful," she said softly. "You don't have to prove anything." But Rick wasn't having it. "If you can't handle the job, you shouldn't be here," he barked. Daniel felt a flash of anger, but before he could respond, Maria stepped forward again. "He's trying," she said. "We all are." Rick scoffed and walked away. Daniel turned to Maria, surprised. "Why did you do that?" he asked. She shrugged. "Because everyone deserves a little kindness. This job is hard enough already." Her words hit him like a wave. Everyone deserves a little kindness. That night, Daniel couldn't sleep, but he thought about the long hours, the pressure, the fear. But more than that, he thought about Maria, how she chose kindness, even when no one was watching, even when it cost her something. On Friday morning, Daniel returned to the warehouse for his final day, but this time, he wasn't just observing that, he was really seeing that. He noticed the exhaustion in people's eyes, the tension in their shoulders, the way they flinched when Rick raised his voice, and he noticed something else. Despite everything, they kept going, not because of policies or paychecks, but because of each other. At the end of the shift, the workers gathered for a brief meeting. Rick started speaking, his usual tone sharp and impatient, but before he could continue, Daniel stepped forward. "Actually," he said, his voice steady, "I'd like to say something." The room fell silent. Daniel removed his cap and then his jacket, and finally, he looked at them, not as Danny, but as himself. "My name is Daniel Harper," he said. "I'm the CEO of this company." Gasps filled the room. Rick's face turned pale. Maria stared at him, stunned. "I came here this week to understand what it's really like to work here," Daniel continued. "And what I found was not what I expected." He paused, taking a deep breath. "I saw hard work. I saw dedication. But I also saw fear, stress, and a lack of respect that should never exist in any workplace." "No one moved. I failed you," he said quietly. "I focused on growth and numbers, but I forgot about people." The room was completely still now. Then Daniel turned to Maria. "But I also saw something incredible," he said. "I saw kindness. Real, selfless kindness." Maria shook her head slightly, embarrassed. "You helped me when I struggled," Daniel said. "You stood up for me when you didn't have to. You reminded me of what this company should be." Tears filled Maria's eyes. Daniel turned back to the group. "Things are going to change," he said firmly, and they did. In the weeks that followed, Daniel implemented major changes. Supervisors were retrained, not just in management, but in empathy and communication, and employee feedback became a priority. Breaks were respected. Wages were reviewed. Recognition programs were introduced, and Rick, he was removed from his position. But the biggest change wasn't in policies to IT, was in culture. Daniel made it clear that kindness wasn't optional, it was essential. Maria was promoted to a leadership role, not because of her performance numbers, but because of her character. "She leads with heart," Daniel said. "And that's what we need." Months later, the warehouse felt different. There was still hard work, still pressure. But there was also respect. Laughter returned, people felt seen, and something unexpected happened. Productivity improved, customer satisfaction increased, but more importantly, people started enjoying their work again. One afternoon, Daniel visited the warehouse, this time as himself. He walked through the aisles, greeting employees, stopping to talk, listening. When he reached Maria, she smiled. "Looks like things changed," she said. Daniel nodded. "Because of you." She shook her head. "No, because you chose to listen." Daniel thought about that. Kindness wasn't just about small acts, it was about choices, choosing to see people, choosing to care, choosing to act. As he left the warehouse that day, Daniel realized something powerful. Success isn't measured by profits alone, it's measured by how you treat the people who make that success possible. And sometimes, the most important lessons don't come from boardrooms or reports. They come from the quiet strength of ordinary people who choose kindness, even when it's hard. So the next time you have a chance to be kind, take it, because you never know who you might lift up. Or how far that kindness might reach, and maybe, just maybe, it will change more than just one moment. It might change everything.